Okay, hi everybody. My name is Mike Butcher. I'm a journalist, an editor in fact, apparently, of TechCrunch. TechCrunch is a small little blog we whipped up in 2005. It now has 20 million readers. We're based out of San Francisco, and I'm based in London. I've been covering the technology industry since 1876, and of course many of you will remember the big story of the switch from the internal to combustion engine, from the horse-drawn carriage to the internal combustion engine. And I'm based in London. I'm also, by the way, running a non-profit called Tech Fugees, where we try and unite the worlds of technology and humanitarian causes. We are going to be talking about quantum. Now, quantum technologies, I'm not going to embarrass anyone in the room and ask you who's heard of quantum technologies. The best way to start this off is that we all start off from the same position of knowledge. And I think that the best thing to sort of, just as a sort of an opener, is to talk about how quantum computing is different from classical computing, because, and this is actually probably the best explanation I saw, was that in classical computing it's either 0 or 1, it's either on or off, right? In quantum computing it can be either on or off at the same time. And therefore it means that you can, now where was my fantastic sentence? It's like a supercharged version of a computer that can explore many possible solutions to a problem simultaneously, rather than one at a time. And that is why it is so exponentially interesting and has so much potential. And now, when I started covering quantum computing several years ago, the only way to talk about it, especially from perspective of TechCrunch, was to talk about the kinds of things that IBM, like massive companies like IBM, were coming up with, and all very much at the lab scale. So there were a couple of like small university spin-outs, quite a lot of them in the Netherlands, interestingly enough, and it seems to have kind of got the jump on a lot of us. But now, in 2024, we're seeing some very interesting real business propositions emerge out of quantum computing, especially in the world of cryptography and material science. Some of you might know that quantum computing is very highly relevant in material sciences because it's very, very applicable in the physics world. So this first panel is going to be talking about the technology aspects of quantum, and we have a fantastic esteemed panel. We have, if you just sort of raise your hand when I say your name, we have Steve Suarez of Horizon X Consulting. We have William D. Oliver, who's from MIT. He's the Henry Ellis Warren Professor of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science at MIT, and various other things. We also have Daniela Herman, who's from Dynex and Dynex Moonshots. And then we also have Alexandra Beckstein from QAI Ventures, and looking at very much sort of the investment aspect of it. A round of applause for our panel, everybody, who've come all the way to be here from far afield. Let me start off, perhaps, with Daniela from Dynex. Now, you are the co-founder of Dynex, the world's first quantum as a service solving real-world problems at scale. I won't open things too much for you. Tell us in sort of the 45 seconds what you're working on and what kinds of things you're doing at the moment.
Yes, so
and do you have a microphone?
Yes, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you to you as well. On the side of world's first, we're always careful with that. We're a leader in quantum as a service, for sure. And this is, at the end, bringing to the world available quantum computing, solving real-world problems at scale. What does that mean? That means that it becomes applicable two challenges that we are wanting to compute on, and today, based on the computational power we have, are not able to yet tackle that. And so it's an availability of 1 million qubits that we have with quantum as a service as an emulation. Well remarked. Thank you.
Alexandra.
My name is Alexandra. I'm running a company called Chi Ventures. Chi stands for Quantum AI, and what we do is we don't only invest with the venture capital funds into startups, we also work with the startups in an acceleration program, and we position ourselves always as an ecosystem builder. That means as soon as we invest, we try to get the startups on ground, to work with them, and also to connect them to the players in the ecosystem they need to grow. Quantum is such a new field, a new technology, that you cannot just found a company in a bar or in Silicon Valley in a garage and then grow it. You need universities, you need corporates that work with you in that, you need other ecosystems, other venture capitalists, and this is how we bring them together. This is what we do, and we are based in Switzerland and also in Canada.
Great. Can everybody here at the back? All right? Okay, cool. Steve.
Good morning, everybody. So Steve Suarez, I'm a recovering banker. So I was with HSBC for 20 years. I was their head of innovation, and that's kind of where I got into quantum. About a year and a half ago, I decided to leave and start my own organization. So I have my own consulting company specializing in quantum strategy and working through that. I sit on a couple of quantum computing boards today, Classic, Quera, and actually Q-Secure. I think their CEO is about to join us.
Do they all start with the letter Q?
Yeah, they do. You can't be a quantum company without a Q. Even if there's not a Q in there, they'll put a Q in there. So I do that. And then I've got a quantum index that I'm launching today. Actually, if you go to the quantum index, you'll see something we're launching today. I'll talk more about that in our panel. And then last, in kind of my spare time, I'm working with this guy at MIT, but I won't steal his thunder because I'll let him introduce the course that we're working on together on quantum.
Great, William.
Great, thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here and with you all. Will Oliver. I'm a professor at MIT. I work on superconducting qubits, also cold classical high-performance electronics. We have a startup called Atlantic Quantum. We're about 4 years in, again, working on scaling qubits, reducing the cost per qubit. 20% time with Google Quantum AI, help them with the Willow processor. But maybe germane here is what Steve just mentioned, is that the director of MIT X Pro's quantum courses, the fundamentals and realities of quantum computing. Professional development, meant for people who are already in industry. And what Steve's referring to is course 5, the 5th one, which is going to be for executives. It's going to be a 2 or 3 hour course. You could take it on a Saturday if you wanted to. Again, just helping people understand what is quantum, what can it do for my business, how it's going to affect my bottom line, and when are we going to have one, right? When are we going to have one that's commercially viable?
When are we going to have one?
That's a great question, Mike. Thanks for that. Well, in some sense, we already have quantum computers. They're just small, maybe 100 qubits or something like that, which isn't commercially relevant today, except you can use them to practice or develop quantum algorithms that will affect your bottom line in the future. And by doing this, you'll gain some insight into how large a quantum computer do I need to wait for until it actually does affect the bottom line. When I'm asked this question, and I'll just very quickly, I always return the question back, which is to say, when did we have a classical computer? What year was it when we finally had one? And of course, the answer is, I don't know. Because in the 50s, we had classical computers, and they didn't do much. You wish they would do more. And it developed over the last 60 or 70 years to get to the 100 billion transistor processors that we have today. And along the way, the technology evolved year by year by year, becoming more and more valuable. And if I had to guess, quantum computing will evolve in the same way.
And I believe there's a fantastic book called The Difference Engine, which postulates what would have happened if Charles Babbage had built his calculating engine in about 1850. We'd all be running on steam and steam-driven
Steampunk.
Steampunk, yeah, steam-driven computers. But and in fact, also Alan Turing invented the bomb, didn't he? The oddly named bomb in the 40s to crack.
That's right.
To crack the
Enigma.
The Enigma machine
That's
that
right.
the Germans were using. Now, Now, let's throw it open. And let me just get, I was browsing some of the latest news and I think it's quite fun if we just get involved with what's going on at the moment. There's things like errors in quantum computing I think we should cover, and also, the controversy about NVIDIA sort of being a bit down on quantum just the other day. I just need to stop my phone from going off. So, I mean, Danielle, from a sort of practical point of view, in the technology space, are the technologists worried, or are they very, very sure of what's going to happen? Because we want to talk a little bit much more about the technology aspects right now. Are they worried about these, the breaking news that might happen around quantum computing right now?
So I think there are sequences to the technologies, right? So the evolving technologies around quantum, I think that's a great opportunity. That's a very vibrant innovation field that will uprise, right? Because it goes to security, it goes to new businesses on quantum. It transforms, as much as Steve said also, it will transform the position of larger companies and smaller companies as soon as it's available and affordable also, logically. And if you ask your question towards a technology of competition, like let's say, more established quantum knowledgeable companies, I do think worried is maybe a bit too negative, but I would say, we're grateful, for example, that IBM did such a great job in kind of paving the way for quantum. They did a phenomenal job, and otherwise we wouldn't be building on it, right? But are we then appreciated by the surrounding that has manifested that they will kind of lead the way to quantum? Certainly not, right? It's a little bit I think it's a little bit a surprise that there will be much more companies coming with alternatives, which we also appreciate. It's not just us. And we want to collaborate with these companies and grow the field, because it's the next mega cycle, and it's the next mega cycle for humanity. Thank you.
Amazing. Alex?
Yeah, maybe when it comes to development, we also have to look at the circumstances, right? I mean, quantum technology, first of all, it's not only used for quantum computers, also for other technologies, but also these technologies are not only, they did not start to develop right now, like AI. We always started in the 50s. The first investment wave, for example, in quantum hardware already started in the 60s, 70s, right? So now we say in the investment space, we're already in the third wave of quantum computing. But what I find also interesting is that the largest investments into quantum were made within the last 5 years. And 2 years ago, it was the first year where public funding was larger than than venture capital, than private funding. And this shows also a strong interest from governments and from the public side into this development. And we are, when I see the numbers, today we are in 60 billion, I think, from public against 12 million from the private sector. And this is also what gives a huge push to the market. So research and development needs a lot of money from the public side, not only from private markets.
Right. Will?
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned Jensen, and a lot of people took that negatively. I actually took it quite positively. He said, we're going to have a quantum computer in 15 or 20 years. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Because, what he's thinking when he says that is we're going to be using quantum computers to develop new pharma drugs, right? That quantum computer is going to have tens or hundreds of millions of qubits, right? And there's a lot that we're going to do between now and then. Yeah. So I wouldn't take this negatively. Look, Jensen said, look, 15, 20 years, we're going to have a real quantum computer. Fantastic, right? I would love to see that. And even if he said 30 years as the longest horizon, that's still amazing. Again, think about classical computing. It started in the 40s. We're in, 2025 now, right? It's a long evolution. But it's not that we just started making money yesterday on classical computers. We've been doing it all along, and the same thing's going to happen with quantum computers. So I'm actually quite bullish by Jensen's
And just before Steve jumps in, MIT set a world record with 99.998% fidelity, whatever that is, in quantum computing the other day. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I really appreciate my grad students being so honest that last 8 also was not a 9. But no, fidelity is how well you can do a quantum operation. And so the better you can do quantum operations, the more operations you can do before it falls apart. And we count the number of nines in fidelity. That means how close did you get to where you wanted to go? If you're at the North Pole and you go to the South Pole, how close did I actually get to the South Pole as a fraction? So that's basically what fidelity is. The reason it's important is because once you cross a threshold of fidelity, you achieve at least a certain level. Of course, being beyond it's even better. Quantum error correction kicks in, and that's what Google showed with their Willow announcement. I'm happy to talk about that too.
Right, Steve.
Well, that's great, and actually they just did that, so that works out well to share with the panel. I think I wanted to go back just quickly on the Jensen remark. I don't think he did that maliciously. He did put it out there, but now, actually, funny enough, and one of the companies I'm with, he's asking the CEOs to lunch and to talk to them, and you see that the stocks bounce back up. I'll give you an analogy.
And he also said they were going to, after he sort of was a bit down on quantum computing, the stocks crashed in quantum, and then about a week later or something, he said,
went back up.
we're going to have a quantum day
Exactly.
at NVIDIA, and everything sort of recovered.
It's going to make it up. But
So,
the thing is,
good
when you say crash, it goes up 400%. They came down to only 200% up. So when you say crash, it's also relative. But just the analogy I use for quantum, because people ask me, Steve, why do I get involved in quantum today? I see quantum like a marathon. You're not going to show up the date of a marathon, not doing any training, not doing anything, and then just expect to start running and performing well. And so the people who actually start learning about quantum, start working on the algorithms, and by the way, running those algorithms are very different than running classical algorithms. You're not going to have access to the hardware. Like AI, we all had access to the hardware. There's going to be limited hardware, limited talent. And so the people who jump in now and start working now are the ones that are going to have that head start. And in this technology, you don't want to be a fast follower because this technology has the potential to leave people behind. So that's where I tell people, get involved now. You're not need to spend a lot of money, but start educating yourself now. And that's why Will and I are committed to putting out this education course along with the International Year of Quantum. We're going to be part of the United Nations Assembly to make sure we can educate business and executives and leaders, because it's not only the technology people we need to bring with us.
Daniela.
Yeah, maybe to add to that, and that's where we already had great conversations. So we have launched already today the first textbook in neuromorphic quantum computing that has been built into a program at the Sona College of Technology in India, and will reach several millions of students also in India by the following several months, I would say. I hope so. And as said, the leading students of the Technology Institute are already working on it now. They're in the program. And we're very happy to collaborate to expand this knowledge also much further together and try to kind of get as much people educated, because the labor force as such, there is missing talent, there is a lot, but missing experts that are really in this field home.
What's the significance of, you mentioned the word neuromorphic, just unpack that for us?
Yes, certainly. So there are different categories of, so you can say the categories of supercomputing, alternative supercomputing have different kind of names. So you have also optical supercomputing, if you want, you have the quantum computing, and you have neuromorphic approaches that were taken. IBM and the EU have done great research on this, so it's not us that had done primary research, and they came also to results that are amazing and stunning. And based on that, we started elaborating in our laboratories how you could actually manifest something like that based on quantum in the, let's say, digital twin space as such, which we did through an emulation. So that's, and you have to just think of it simply, it's like, it's not just one highway like your brain, it's like multiple highways at the same time.
Did you want to chip in?
Just to take again from the education part, I think this is also the right time, because now we see in the field that actually technology starts to work out, right? So when we started to work 3 years ago, started to invest it into the first startups, then the startups, they didn't have any revenue, they didn't have any of course, they had a product, but not a revenue, not a customer. So from an investor point of view, this is very difficult to invest in, right? So you kind of hope and invest and make them grow. And I always said we develop the market alongside the technology at the moment. But now it allows us, with all the developments that happen in the technology, also the Willow chip it's a breakthrough that we would not have expected to be so fast, so quick, to come so quick.
The Willow chip was from Google.
Yes, but still, what did I say?
No.
Yeah.
I'm just
I'm sorry,
helping you.
yes, now it allows us also to raise bigger funds, to get bigger investors investing into the technology. That all helps us to develop quantum technology.
Right. Just to remind you guys, we're going to do Q&A, so we'll do a few more minutes of the panel, and then we would love to hear from you, your questions, your points. So while we're talking, file those a few points away in your head to bring up or ask the panel or raise yourself. Errors. Let's talk about errors.
Let's talk about errors.
Because scientists, I mean, you're the right man to talk about errors. Not in a negative sense. But scientists say that by using, and you're going to help me out this, antimony atom and the Schrodinger's cat, here we go, you're in the room now, thought experiment, they could have found a way to stop the errors that appear in quantum computing. I think a lot of us are familiar now with the errors in AI and hallucinations, but we're talking about a different sort of prospect. But obviously, we want to remove the errors in quantum computing so it gets better. So tell us about how that's going to happen and what's going on right now.
Yeah, so as you know, quantum mechanical qubits, they're faulty, right? It's just the nature of quantum mechanics. But if we want to run commercially relevant algorithms, we're going to need to run 1 billion or 1 trillion operations in that algorithm, right? Which means our error rates need to be at 1 in a billion or 1 in a trillion level. How are we going to get there? Even with this result Mike just mentioned, that's 1 in 10 to the 5, right? 1 in a 10,000, 100,000, something like that. So we have a big gap to fill. And the way that we're going to fill it is with something called quantum error correction. The way I think about it is we're making teams of qubits. Now, if you imagine back to school, elementary school, let's say kindergarten. I had a kid who used to be in kindergarten. And you see a room full of kindergartners, it's total chaos, right? They're all running around and having a great time, heartwarming. But you're not going to build a computer out of those kids, right? What happens, though, is through our education, we mature. And eventually, we get to the point where adding people together and forming teams, that team will outperform any of the individuals, right? That happens somewhere maybe in high school. And of course, the teams get even bigger when you go to college, and then you have companies with hundreds of thousands of employees that clearly could not do anything that they're doing today without having all of those people contributing in a constructive way together. And in a nutshell, that's what quantum error correction is, and that's what Google showed with their Willow demonstration. They went from, let's think of it as a team of qubits, of 17 qubits to 49 qubits to 97 qubits, and every time they added qubits and made a larger team, the error rates went down by a factor 2. That is amazing. It's the first time that that's ever happened, and that's why the Google Willow announcement is so important for the community. Now, the amount it went down, that factor 2, of course, we want to make that better, and that's what we got to do next. But the point is, we're on the right side of the line. We've crossed the threshold, as we call it, so that quantum error correction is now viable. We can make larger teams. We can get to millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of qubits. They all work together to perform relevant operations. That's what we're doing.
Well, and that really only happened very recently, right? So
happened just in December. Well, of course, we were working on it for a long time, but the announcement was made in December.
Fascinating. Steve, what do you think the significance of that is for the prospects for the technology?
So in the course, we actually talk about looking at quantum from 2 different perspectives. We talk about the visioning and vigilance. Vigilance is the stuff going on in the outside. These are people like the Googles, like the IBMs, all the people doing computer and seeing how the quality of qubits are getting better. And error correction plays a large portion of that. So if you're going to look at different thresholds, and I think for the investors in the room, you're going to start looking at what are the key metrics I need to look at companies to see how they're doing. And quality of the qubits are going to be important because that's what's going to really determine coherence time, which means how long and the quality of those things. So as error correction gets better, you're going to see that those computers are getting better. You don't have control of that. So that's quantum vigilance. You're watching the market, you're doing that piece. What you do have control of is your quantum visioning, which is start developing your algorithms, get that muscle memory of how and what you need to do in quantum. And once those two intersect, that's when you're going to get commercial value. So if you're thinking about how you're going to get commercial value, is you got to look at both sides of the coin. One coin you can manage, the other coin you can't.
And we're going to be talking, we're going to do a real deep dive into the business side of this as the second panel straight after this one. We're trying to concentrate more on the technology side and its potential right now. But let me tell you a little bit of a personal story, which is my eldest son, Christopher, is he's a physics graduate, and he's now doing his master's at Cambridge University. Now, proud father here. And he certainly didn't get it from me. I'm an arts graduate, but luckily his grandfather is a scientist. And he told me the other day that he could interrogate a quantum computer. And I said, "What the hell are you doing? Don't do anything. Don't press any buttons you shouldn't press." And of course, he was using it. He was using a terminal on a quantum and sort of as a kind of a fun thing, and so it is absolutely fascinating, isn't it, that young people can access quantum computers and run tiny little experiments of their own, which is very, very exciting, and I think speaks to, was it your point earlier about how millions of students in India will have access to this technology. And so from a startup point of view and from a coding and engineering point of view, this is really very exciting, isn't it? So what sort of, tell us a little bit more about that, because you, with Dynex, you're using quantum as a service. So how do you see that scaling out?
Well, I mean, at the end, it's I'm going to keep it short that all my friends can speak as well. So it's not Dropbox, but at the end, it's like Dropbox, right? You have a subscription model, you access that, and you can access the emulation. We do have ethical integrity barriers, so you cannot just do anything on this because we are aware of our responsibility as well. And that is how it's going to scale. We have 150,000 GPU providers that kind of feed into the decentralized network. We have an own layer 1 blockchain, and we created probably in the space a very innovative architecture that hasn't been seen to facilitate quantum for everyone. We also tackled the problem of error correction logically, but that is logically not the same thing like the phenomenal result that William was speaking about. But with regards to decentralized networks, you logically do not have the centralized issue, and that has led the emulation to really overcome also the error correction in a different approach, right? So that's how you can scale it.
Any other thoughts on quantum as a service?
Maybe, yeah, because it sounds so nice and it's a very nice business model and it sounds so easy, but you still need people to show you how to do it. So this is why I think all these educational approaches that we're discussing are so important. From MIT, also Microsoft, they just launched a program. We in Basel, we're doing educational programs. It's to people or business deciders, they need someone to translate their problem into quantum. Sometimes they don't even know what they could do with quantum computers, right? What problems they could solve much better with a quantum computer than with a classical computer. So I like very much all these approaches. Also public funding is going into building up this ecosystem, bringing hardware on the ground, bringing educational initiatives on the ground, universities, corporates and so on. So this is what we need much more, and not only the funding and the development of one. Of course we need it, but we have not only one technology. We need to see the bigger picture. This is what I find very important.
Yeah, and if I can just quickly add to that, the role of universities is very important here. We're not beholden to any one, CEO or thought or business plan. We can be agnostic and we can say, really, this is the way it is, and here are the different options. In our courses, for example, we include many of the big players in quantum today because we do want those perspectives. And Microsoft did announce this, course, and that's great. But they may be advocating the Microsoft perspective, and what we can do is bring something.
Microsoft advocating a Microsoft perspective? It doesn't sound like them at all.
Shocking.
Shocking.
But
yeah.
that's the role
I'm
for
kidding.
universities, really, is to train people. If you look at a university, we have a school of science, school of engineering, lots of departments. If this is going to become a reality, this quantum computing, which I believe it will, we're going to need to draw on people from all of those departments, not just the physics department, not just the engineers, but the chemists who know the problems. I teach courses in Sloan now. Why? Obviously, right? It's a business, and we need people who understand how do I form businesses when there's a lot of ambiguity in that business, or even marketing, right? We're going to have to market this stuff. So we're going to need people across the whole spectrum. We have to educate them. They're not all going to have a physics degree, thank God. So the point is, how can you educate people in a way that helps them pivot to quantum, learn what they need to know, become quantum aware, but do it in a reasonable time frame, not a 6-year PhD.
Steve,
I'll be
then
quick.
Daniela.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I think Will brings up a really good point. We're agnostic, so we are not tied to a single company or anything. So we're going to teach you quantum across the board. If you go to one of these other vendors, like we just mentioned, they're going to teach you their stuff, and they're going to kind of lock you in to their stuff. And so we believe you don't know who's going to win this race. And so we're going to give you exposure to all the people that are running the race, and we're going to show you who's the best, who's doing well in some areas, and who's got the weaknesses. So we'll give you a general, and then you can decide how deep you want to go.
Just one quick comment. We're not picking on Microsoft. Just they happen to be the ones who announced it. They're doing a great job in quantum. But certainly Microsoft is going to tell you their perspective. They're going to introduce you to their platforms, et cetera. And what we want to do is introduce you to all of the platforms.
Daniela.
Yes, and I'm just saying, as you said also, for example, when we have one client that is in cardiovascular disease also, and we're doing an AI enhancement with quantum. And as Steve very well said, and Horizon X as a consultant is extremely important, because imagine we have a thousands of employees company that comes and wants to implement quantum. We as Dynex need integration partners that help us make these companies quantum ready, that explain to the companies what does that mean, because your thinking, even if I'm extremely happy that it's happening, your thinking needs to be completely different in the future, how you tackle problems. Right?
And you want consultants that haven't just read it in the book, that have already seen that movie. So I think because I've already got experience seeing that movie, we can help.
We're going to, was there any last, I'm going to ask you one last question, but we're going to do Q&A in just 1 minute, and then I would like you to grab a coffee, because we're going to be continuing the discussion. But just a quick one thing, we haven't really delved in, and if I can start with you, Daniela, going all the way up to Will, the hardware side of this. So, I mean, we're all familiar with classical computing and, chips, microchips and GPUs. The hardware aspect of this is a whole other ballgame as well. And I think the thing to remember with quantum computing is not just about qubits, it's also the hardware that produces the qubits in the first place. And where are we on that? Just any thoughts you have about the hardware aspect, go for it.
Well, I mean, it says it, we're in emulation, so the hardware is exactly how we made it affordable for everyone, because we overcame the problem of the huge investments that you need to undertake to make quantum happen, right? So that's one thing, right? But as said, it's an emulation. That's something else to a quantum computer. And if you take a quantum computer from the hardware, I'm a little bit a disruptive nature, and I'm very much believing that innovation will go much further in reducing the requirements on hardware innovation, right? But where this is going, that's a hypothesis. Right now, on the hardware, if at one day the big computers would want to scale, it will need a lot of hardware. I mean, but the design of a chip, for example, that's not a huge hardware, right? And if the chip solves the temperature problems quantum has, then you're entering again into a new space of opportunities. Right. So it's I think it's really moving from the horse to the car, and that's where these surprises can happen, that innovation suddenly just surprises the market.
Alex, any thoughts?
If we want to make it short, I'm not the right person to talk about hardware development.
That's fine.
But what I can say is that what is important for us to give access to all different types of hardware for the startups that develop algorithms and software. I think this is important. What we should, what we do.
Okay.
So I do have an opinion on this, and we'll see what Will kind of gives me a dirty look. So depending on the modality, I got some favorites. Definitely neutral atoms. Quera, definitely at the top list, so Quera computing. And then on superconducting, I would say Google's doing a lot of really good stuff, not just because Will's in the room, and I know Will does advising for them, but I think Google's doing some stuff. I think there's some really good stuff in the photon and trapped ions, but I'll leave it to that. Quera and Google, I think, are at the top of my list.
Well,
Yeah, I'll just round it out quickly. There are many platforms that people are investigating, and there is no winner yet today. And in fact, I would say there is not going to be a winner. There's going to be for this decade or the next 20 years, one that's at the forefront. But if you think back to the last century in classical electronic computing, there also was no winner per se until very late. We started with vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes then were replaced with bipolar junction transistors. That was replaced with emitter-coupled logic. And eventually, eventually we got to CMOS technology, where we are today. Now we're still evolving. We're going to 3D integration, right? So I don't think there's going to be a clear winner for, the rest of eternity. There will be some that are in the lead. Steve mentioned a couple. We'll see how long that they're in the lead for, and I think that's what makes this field very interesting.
They're in the lead now.
well, yes, and certainly in the computing space we're familiar with, such as Intel and NVIDIA and IBM and all the rest of it. It's all played out rather differently to how I probably would have envisaged it maybe 15, 20 years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have some questions, but for now, please give us a thank you to Steve, William, to Alex, and to Daniela. Questions, and I don't know if we have a roving mic. Do we have, Gary, do you have a roving mic? We'll use one of these as a roving mic. The rules would be, if you could just say your name and your company name, please don't do a huge advert for your company. That would be helpful. And make a point or a question. Let's go with you first, sir. Go ahead. And please feel free to stand up if you want.
Hey, everybody. Jeremy McCain, Ocean AI. I think a lot of this conversation so far reminds me of the paper that Einstein wrote, which was the quantum theory of radiation. We're all familiar. In 1917. It was really got us to think differently on how photons are used, and it paved the way for lasers. And the thing I always like to think about in that particular paper is that Einstein didn't say, well, it'd be faster if we made these things to check out in our grocery line. But it was the physics and the fundamentals that got us where we were going. So, what I'm curious about, and we're using, obviously, large amounts of data and using quantum to be able to find anomalies. But I'm excited about that because I like oceans and I like sustainability. But what I would love to hear from each of you is, on the application side of quantum, what are some of the things, because I'm sure there's some whispers in your ear, what are the things that get you out of bed in the morning that you're really excited about the applications of this technology?
Thanks. Any thoughts, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I know in the business section, which is next, I'll keep the business stuff but from a climate perspective, I think it could have a really big impact on climate. I got 3 boys in this world. And when I leave, I want to leave them with a better world. So if we can use this technology to do that, and one use case I would say is, I don't know if anybody knows, but we spend about 1.25, nobody knows the exact number, to create ammonia. So we use the world's energy to create ammonia. We create ammonia to create fertilizer, which creates food. The reason it takes so much energy to create that ammonia is because we don't know how it's done in nature, right? And so if we can understand how quantum mechanically it's done, we could actually reduce that energy usage and apply it somewhere else, which actually has a big impact on climate change. We right now don't even understand what the capabilities are, and that's why I'm really excited about this technology.
Any other thoughts?
Maybe in general, I would like to explain in 1 or in 2 sentences what quantum technology or quantum computing is used for. Like the mathematical calculations to do is simulation and optimization. So everything that you can simulate or optimize, you can now think about what the impact could be. So when we talk about applications, we talk about applications in pharma, we talk about applications in finding new materials. I like also the ammonia example because it is responsible for 4% of the CO2 what is it? Emission, thank you, worldwide. So there is for me, it's more like finding something that we cannot even imagine, right?
Okay, great. We have another question. This gentleman was first, and then I can see all the rest of you. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Jim Caravella, Offworld, building swarms of industrial robots in extreme environments. So fantastic panel, guys. The question I would like to ask, a little bit more on the hardware side, and then the implications are on the distribution model of quantum computing access. So there's a lot of work in room temperature quantum computing, I think, as you touched upon, like Terra computing and others. If that becomes really viable, does that enable much more localized distribution of hardware and maybe change the model of the as a service model?
Yeah, sure, I can chip in here. Yeah, I think that would be great if we could do room temperature quantum computing. It's challenging just because those qubits are so sensitive, and so almost all of the technologies today are low temperature. But we would love to be at room temperature, all of us, because it would make things a lot easier. Then we can think about distributing. We need to network quantum information between those distant points, just like computing on the edge. You have to somehow communicate, obviously, right? So networking of quantum information also becomes important in that environment. But I can see it going in that direction. But the first thing we need viable quantum computers, and we need viable quantum networks, and then step 3 might be distributing.
And just remind us again, how cold does it have to be to work?
Well, it depends on the technology, but many superconducting qubits, semiconducting qubits, superconducting qubits, a lot of them have to be at 20 millikelvin, almost absolute zero. Sounds crazy, but it's you just buy those refrigerators today. It's not that bad. Many of them work at 4 Kelvin as well, trapped ions, for example.
Danielle.
And maybe there to your question, so the architecture, how that can look, the distribution, right, can also be that if we create room temperature, let's assume that you have chips that are, for example, in the works, we are doing one as well, and you can create the quantum nodes, which will become part of the decentralized network. You have a different model arising in the accessibility, right? And then that is also a different game. But as said, that then in the chip design also needs to kind of come to large numbers of qubits where we are not yet today.
Right. No.
How many years lag between cryogenic and room temperature?
Yeah, it's hard to say because the room temperature development is going to require some, disruptions.
Stick a finger in the air and guess. We're going to get last 2 questions, maybe last 3 if there is one. We're going to make it real fast. Okay, ready? Go. Let's just hear the question.
Effie Pilari, no global fintech influencer. The question is for you, Steve. I know HSBC is a leader in quantum. Who else is in the banking or financial services? And then in terms of optimization, can I hope that central banks' monetary policy will ever change because of quantum?
Oh. So I believe so.
No pressure.
I believe so. I want to save your question for the business one because I think a lot of it is in the financial one, and I think it'll be there. But if you're looking for the leaders, I'll give you. I'm not going to announce this till tomorrow, but I'm announcing it right now.
Wait a minute. I'm the journalist. I need a press release.
Actually, because the thing is, we're moving so on the quantum insider, the quantum index. We've already rated who are the best use of automotive. You can see Volkswagen is at the top, BMW, blah blah blah. On financial services, just last night we published, and I haven't told anybody until this room, and I was going to keep my mouth shut, but I can't. Who are the top players? Number 1, J.P. Morgan. I know you're shocked. Number 2, HSBC. Number 3, Goldman Sachs. This is a point in time. You could look at every other bank.
Is HSBC still a client?
I'm a client of theirs.
Okay.
But you know what? I'm not by the way, I'm not speaking on behalf of HSBC, so please
No, it's fine.
don't get me. I'm speaking on behalf of Horizon X, but yes.
Okay, thank you. Great answer. Next, real quick question.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name is Brian Massioni. I'm at the Harvard Kennedy School. I'm focusing more on the governance and policy aspects of the development of quantum computing. My question is regarding PQC, post-quantum cryptography. Alexandra, I believe it was you who mentioned that Willow is spurring a lot more excitement and investment back into quantum computers. What happens as PQC starts to become more prevalent, NIST comes out with quantum-safe algorithms? Does quantum then lose some of its lust, saying, hey, you know, the national security threat, a lot of what's prompting public investment is kind of waning? Does quantum then go into a quantum winter, or does it still remain relevant? Is PQC as secure as it sounds?
Quick answer.
Yeah. No, listen, PQC, definitely a point of importance. I mentioned earlier that the CEO of one of the best companies doing this is going to be in the room. Rebecca, can you please raise your hand? So if you guys want to talk PQC and the experts, Rebecca's got an amazing...
I think that question was directed...
It was, but she asked me to answer it.
Oh, okay. Right.
To start.
Right. Can you wrap it up?
Yeah.
We're running out of time.
So PQC is definitely important, but it doesn't compete with quantum.
Okay. 10 seconds.
Short answer, we don't see the winter coming because at the same time as PQC develops, the solutions against it develop as well.
Final question.
Hello, everybody. Crypto family here. The question is about who will rule the technology, how we can use, because it could be like a weapon. We can design the new materials, or we can make new weapons. First of all, because if there is investments from the private,
okay, we get it.
Okay,
weapons or civilian. What an upbeat way to end the panel. I suppose. There will be defence applications, won't there? Anyone? Go, Daniela.
Yeah, so first of all, I think if you go into huge disruptions of history, it was always the threat, everything will be catastrophe afterwards. You know, horse to car was also big threats that, oh my God, you're going to sit in something that's going to drive 20 kilometers per hour. It's going to kill you, right? So I do think innovation will catch up. That's one. And two, with regards to defense, I do think that any kind of company that is out there, and I really mean any kind of company, needs to align with ethical principles.
100%.
It cannot be that we are deploying this again, like in the last 100 years, to kind of screw up our humanity with this tool. And if that's the purpose of this technology, then we didn't do it really well, I would say, with the atomic bomb already. So I think it's really time that we really take this serious, like we should also take AI serious and create these ethical principles, and not the regulations that stop something, but rather embrace it and make it kind of a governance that is digestible for everyone.
I think we would all agree on that. Ladies and gentlemen, who is excited by quantum? It's really fascinating, isn't it? It's 100%. Now, you're actually going to be in a position to hear even more and next about the business applications, the business of quantum, not just the technology. And that is the next panel right after you go and grab a coffee and come back and claim your seat. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, our panel, and from me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. See you in a minute. 5 minutes.
We have a 10-minute intermission. We start 12 p.m.